Hi, welcome to the final presentation for CST 323. A lot of changes went into this week's application. It was really just a lot of polishing. Some of our features weren't working quite right, which would be typical in the development cycle. But we finally got all the features working, which we wanted to get working. And here I'll just show a quick overview of the application. So here's our home page. It's hosted on Heroku, obviously. Here's our Heroku dashboard, and you can see here I went into detail on this particular portion in my last presentation. That's the production stage, and then we can also see that I know that would be in the pipeline, and we could see our logs, which we added in a previous milestone that we talked about last week. That would be everything that it's logging when we log in. And so as I'm working in this page, right, it's logging everything so we can reference it if we run into any issues. We never got around to parsing the logs. That's quite an extensive process, but something that would need to be done if this application were to be taken to market. And then let's look at our uptime robot. This is relevant considering we talked about uptime and how much uptime should be expected per year. Now we're on the free tier of Heroku, so I wouldn't expect anything above 99%, which is still really good. I think that's a few hours of downtime per year, so really nothing to be upset over for a free tier. However, so far we've had 100% uptime, which would make sense given that statistically our website hasn't been running for long enough. This has been running for 172 hours, so we wouldn't see any downtime yet. But if we did have downtime, it could show us our downtime, show us how long it lasted, and everything like that. And we could also apply more than one up monitor if we had more than one website we were trying to track. Obviously sometimes your website is dependent on other websites, right? If you're using their why am I blanking on this right now? If you're using their API, yes, you would want to monitor different APIs to ensure that all the APIs are still working. Sometimes if someone makes an update to their API, it could be running, but whatever key you're using to access the API, they may have changed one data key. They may have changed your data key. If they say, we think your data key's been compromised, your key to actually view our data, and they change it, and you didn't realize that, well, then you'd want to be using up monitors on any APIs that you're accessing for your application. For example, on our website, let's go ahead and create a new user here. Just to ensure that everything is working as planned. Registration successful. Let's go to the login. So it says our library was empty, right? So then we're going to choose ourselves a PNG file here, and then we could type in let's see, release date. We're going to rate it 5 stars. So here you can see the actual creating a new album. I was able to choose a picture that I want to appear for the album. I was able to pick the album name, the artist, the release date, the rating, and then put in some notes. These are the default. This is the default description for the album. which is fine. This isn't a real album, obviously. So here we can add the album to library. It's been added to my library, and yeah, so that is our application so far in terms of the functionality. And what I wanted to point out was, let me log in with my account, which has a lot of albums on it, real quick. And here we go. We can see all these albums that were added through the album creation screen. And one thing that I wanted to point out was that, let's say that these images, a lot of these images weren't coming from our database. That's a very common thing to do. Let's say you pulled the images from Google, or you had a subscription at a stock image site, which is something that I've done a lot of, building some websites. If you have a subscription at a stock image site, you may want to monitor the uptime on that stock image site, particularly if most of your website images come from there. Stock images are very common in the industry. They allow you to use and select from, tens of thousands of professional looking photos for a small fee, and you can always use new ones if you want to update your website. It's just way more cost effective than hiring an actual photographer to try and take these photos. So let's just say that we were using those for our album covers. We wouldn't necessarily do that for album covers because stock images wouldn't apply to, let's say, the Beatles' White Album, obviously. But if we had a different sort of website, right, we would want to monitor and ensure that whatever our stock image site was up, and we'd want to get a log, right? We want to get logs for it, and we would also want to have a notification system set up to where if the stock image site goes down and our images aren't loading, our website is going to obviously look different than we intended it to look. And I'm sure you've had the experience where you load a website that you're used to going to, and all of the CSS is not appearing, right? And it just looks awful. None of the images are appearing. All you have is a bunch of blocky text and hyperlinks. A lot of the time that has to do with your browser, your web browser, but a lot of the time it also has to do with wherever they're loading the images, and in certain cases the CSS from is not working, right? So they wouldn't be able to load in their CSS package or their images even though their website's still up. Those specific portions of the website are down, and effectively, right, that means your website is down because people aren't going to be able to use it. They're not used to it, and it looks horrible, right? It looks like an original HTML website from the late 90s. So the Uptime Robot is actually really useful, and it's something that I've recently discovered in this class. Using the Uptime Robot can be a huge help in terms of diagnosing things. If somebody, if you're getting a lot of bug reports for a certain issue, first thing you can do is check the Uptime Robot, make sure, hey, all of our referenced websites are working, right? And if one of them's down, well then, does that have to do with the issue? If not, we need to get somebody to fix that, and then we need to go on to the main issue. It's obviously way easier than monitoring stuff manually. Like if somebody said, hey, your website's coming up super plain, none of the images or CSS is working, then I would not want to manually have to search all the websites. Like let's say we had the stock image website, but then we also had users adding images from other websites, and so the Uptime Robot really takes away a lot of the confusion when it comes to website issues, and that's the main thing, because when it comes to bugs, a lot of the time the biggest issue is going to be figuring out what the bug is, and then solving it depending on what the bug is can be quick. Obviously solving a bug can sometimes be not that easy, but finding it is half the battle for the most part. So this is our website so far. You've seen all the functionality. Here we have the search bar and our home, log out and upload a new album buttons. So that's everything for our application. I hope you enjoyed it, and I wish I could say I could see you next week, but this will be the last video. So thank you for watching. Bye bye.